What's up everyone, China Cycling here, aka Joe, aka the Pancake Mountain. You may remember last year I took a look at the Sensah Empire Groupset. It's the $100 group set out of China that tries to offer Shimano 105 or Ultegra level performance for the price of Sora or Claris. Well, this year Sensah are back with the Sensah Empire PRO. It's new and improved, and it's sporting an extra gear. That's right, they've gone 12 speed. Let's take a look. Now, journalistic integrity and transparency are seriously underrated in the world of YouTube. But as always, I respect you guys, so I'll start this review by letting you know that Sensah did send me this group set for free. But I wasn't paid to make this review, and everything I say is my own opinion. In fact, they messed up and actually sent me 2 sets, so if free stuff makes me corrupt, then I guess I'm doubly corrupt. Also, I want to say that while I'll be using US dollars and AliExpress prices throughout this video, I do not control either of those things. In the original Sensah Empire video, I claimed the group set was $100 because it was when I made the video. But then the video kind of took off and demand for the group set increased and the prices went up to $130, $140 US dollars. Even though the video has screenshots of the group set on AliExpress listed at $100, the comments were still full of people calling me a liar. So please bear in mind, I don't control the whole of AliExpress. At least, not yet. Also, we all know what's going on in the world these days, and your YouTube feed is already full of people talking about that thing, and you came here to escape from all that and look at bike stuff, so I'm not going to mention that thing. However, please bear in mind that that thing is also affecting exchange rates, and so prices may vary. Moving on. People in the comments are usually quick to call me out when I'm wrong, but if I'm not mistaken, this is the cheapest 12-speed group set out there, by a long shot. If I'm wrong, let me know down below, and why not join our family by subscribing? Hit the subscribe button to catch all my future videos. We have a really good community here in China Cycling, and you should be a part of it. Now, back to the group set. There are various different versions you can get. The bare minimum is the shifters, the front derailleur, and the rear derailleur. There are also 2 different versions that come with a 12-speed cassette. One is a super lightweight steel and aluminium mixed cassette that weighs 235 grams, and the other one is the one I have here, a fully steel 11-34 that weighs a slightly more portly 370 grams. There are also options for compatible 12-speed cassettes on AliExpress. Look at the ones by Sunshine if you want a durable steel option, or look for ZTTO if you want something lighter but perhaps not as durable. I've not used the 12-speed aluminium version, so I can't vouch for that, so I'll be talking about what I've used. Also, keen-eyed people may notice that these cassettes have standard Shimano 12-speed mounting standards. That's right, these 12-speed cassettes mount on a standard 11-speed Shimano compatible hubs no problem, or almost no problem, but more on that later. Let's start with the shifters. Obviously, the biggest change is the right-hand shifter is now 12-speed. Shifting works the same as the old version, which is a lot like SRAM's double tap shifting. Pushing the shifter to the first click and releasing gives you a harder gear, but pushing past the first click and onto the second click gives you an easier gear. Keep pushing past that and you have the option to shift 2 or 3 easier gears in one swoop. If you've never used double tap before, it sounds really weird, but personally, I like the style of shifting. One difference between SRAM is that SRAM's double tap has a dedicated shift lever to take care of shifting, whereas here on the Sensah, we have the brake lever doing double duty. Why did they choose this SRAM style of shifting? Well, Sensah actually made up a bunch of former SRAM engineers. I heard this as a rumor while researching my first video, but I've since confirmed it with some industry friends. The main criticism of this right-hand shifter is the amount of pushing you have to do. While going up one gear is easy enough, the amount you have to push the lever to go up 2 or 3 shifts requires some serious dexterity in your hands. Now, I have pretty small hands, but even so, I can't see anyone with big hands finding it particularly comfortable either. It's not a showstopper because it's not often you have to shift up 3 gears at once, but it's something to consider. As well as that extra cog inside, another change over the old Sensah is the option of carbon paddles. My pair of shifters came in at 436 grams compared to 483 grams of the old Sensah Empire. For the record, a pair of Ultegra R8000 shifters weighs in at 438 grams. So these shifters are lighter than Ultegra by a whole 2 grams. Moving on to the left shifter, it's still just a double crankset shifter, but now it has 4 different positions. Yes, you now have the choice of 4 different positions for the front derailleur. Most Shimano and some SRAM group sets come with a half location for the front derailleur, and this is just taking that a step further. Basically, you have the standard inboard position, and then an inboard trimmed position, and then an outboard but trimmed position, and finally the fully outboard position. I'm still undecided what to think about this. In theory, it's great. You can be cross-chained in the big ring in the front and the big cog at the back and have no chain rub. But I have 2 problems with that. Number 1, you shouldn't be cross-chained. It's just bad practice. And if you're going to go to the effort to trim the derailleur to make up for your bad practice, you may as well go to the effort to shift to the proper gear and uncross-chain. Secondly, this group set seemingly doesn't really need to be trimmed. In the big ring at the front, I was able to use all 12 gears on the back with little or no chain rub on the front derailleur. Being ex-SRAM engineers, they seem to have taken the approach SRAM made with their True 22, where the front derailleur doesn't need trimming. So, the extra trimmed positions of the front derailleur seem to be a solution to a problem that doesn't exist. The left lever also suffers the same issue as the right lever, being the lever throw required to go up 3 positions at once requires an extreme movement of the shift lever. Again, not show-stopping, but something I'm not a fan of. Moving on to the front derailleur. The front derailleur on the original Sensah Empire was trash, but I'm happy to report they seem to have fixed it with the Empire Pro. I'm not entirely sure if the improvements come from the front derailleur itself or are a result of re-engineered left-hand shifter, but either way, I had no problems installing and setting up the front derailleur, even without a barrel adjuster. I didn't have to use any hocus pocus tricks of pre-adjusting the limit screw to add tension, blah blah blah. I just pulled the cable tight with a pair of pliers and bolted down the cable anchor. Et voila. It worked a treat. Front derailleur weight is 95 grams, which is 1 gram lighter than last year's and just 2 grams heavier than the Ultegra front derailleur. The rear derailleur has also received some carbon bling bling on the pulley cage. This has dropped the weight down to 195 grams for what is by Shimano standards a medium cage derailleur. Again, we're 1 gram lighter than last year's and a few grams lighter than Shimano Ultegra medium cage derailleur. 1 gram doesn't seem to be much of a drop from last year considering the switch to carbon, but that's just proof that carbon can be very overrated and in some situations has very limited advantages. I had no chain included in my review set and actually had no 12-speed chain lying around the house. A mix of necessity and curiosity had me reaching for an 11-speed SUMC SX11EL chain that they originally sent me last year to use with the 11-speed group set. Some research online gives mixed reviews about SUMC chains, so maybe a more reputable chain like a KMC or something could be a better choice. More research needed there. Anyway, the lightest group set in the world is useless if it shifts like a dog. I borrowed another frame from the Windspace warehouse, this time their more budget-friendly T1300 frame, and I built the bike up with some aluminium zip wheels to be more of a budget-friendly kind of build. I'm pleased to report I've had pretty good shifting with the Empire Pro. I'd give it an 8 out of 10 for the shifting I have at the minute. As you can see, most shifts are sharp and crisp. There's sometimes a little bit of hesitation in some of the gear changes, but it usually shifts itself after a rotation or 2. Again, This is with an 11-speed chain. I'm sure this will work much better with a 12-speed chain, but it's already at a pretty good level. I'd put this shifting quality around 105 kind of level. I've seen reviews on the internet in China of this thing shifting with a 12-speed chain, and it does look like they're getting better shifting than me. So I guess I need to put a 12-speed chain on there to really enjoy it. But it's good to know that if you're trying to do a 12-speed on a budget, which is what this Groupset is, then you can technically save some money by using an 11-speed chain. It just won't be perfect. Oh, and if you're curious, this particular build came in at 7.6 kilograms. That's not bad considering that's an aluminum seat post in there, a super cheap saddle, and some entry-level luck pedals, etc, etc. If you want to build a light bike on a budget, I think this Groupset's a great choice. I tried to trick the Groupset doing some nasty cross-chain shifts and also shifting both derailleurs simultaneously, but I couldn't catch it out. I've also done a few outdoor rides on this thing and had no drop chains or other issues. This bike is currently in my studio and I mostly use it to go and ride to lunch and run errands and stuff, so I can't really comment on durability. If you scroll through the comments on last year's video, you can find some other people using the Groupset and having good experiences. My old Sensah Empire, I probably ended up doing about 1,000 kilometers on it, and it performed the same on kilometer 1 as it did on kilometer 1,000. I know 1,000 kilometers isn't enough to give it a real seal of reliability, but these days, I change bikes way too often to put serious mileage in anything. I know, first world problems, I'm not complaining. One potential issue with this Groupset is clearance. I'm not sure how they've squeezed a 12-speed cassette onto an 11-speed hub body, but I suspect they've done it by creeping outside of the area allowed by the Shimano standard. What does that mean? Well, when Shimano come out with a standard, they'll lay out the limit for where the cassette has to lie within the standard in relation to the rest of the bike. So, within the 130 or 135 millimeter dropouts of a road bike, they'll define in what gap the cassette has to fit. This allows the frame manufacturers, wheel manufacturers, and everyone else to design their stuff and know that it will all play nice together. So, what happens when you start creeping outside of these standards by a few millimeters? Well, the first issue I noticed was when it was on my static trainer. If I was in the easiest gear and I tried to get an even easier gear, the bike would actually shift to a harder gear. Usually with SRAM double tap and sensor shifting, if you're already in the easiest gear and you try to get an easier gear, you'll get a weird click from the front shifter and the rear derailleur won't move. This is great. It stops you accidentally getting a hard gear when you want an easy one. But when I first set up the sensor on my static trainer, this wasn't working. Upon closer inspection, I found the rear derailleur was fouling against the body of the static trainer. Oops. Another potential headache is the gap between the rear derailleur and your wheel spokes. Now, if your limit screw is set up correctly, it's going to keep you safe, but the gap is definitely less than on an 11-speed setup. Before setting up the limit screw correctly, I had some shifts where the rear derailleur was brushing against the spokes of the rear wheel. You do not have to be a rocket scientist to work out what happens if your rear derailleur goes into your wheel spokes. I've done it before after crashing and bending a rear derailleur hanger, and it usually results in your rear derailleur being ripped off, snapping the hanger, and you walking home. Oh, but not before crashing off your bike because the rear wheel instantly locked up while you're on a 15% climb. Safety first, kids. Safety first. Again, I do want to stress, if you set up the limit screw properly, this will not be an issue. And with the shallow depth rims like these zips I'm using, the problem is exacerbated because the spoke angle keeps the spokes closer to the derailleur. As always, just check your bike before you ride it, yo. So, what do I think of the Sensah Empire Pro? Would I recommend it? Well, personally, I think 11 gears at the back is enough for me, and the $100 11-speed version is really good value. Essentially, for this 12-speed version, you're doubling the price to get one extra cog at the back and drop about 70 grams compared to the 11-speed version. But, compared to Shimano and SRAM, you're getting a hell of a lot of Groupset for the money. You know, at the time I'm recording this, even Dura Ace is only 11 speed. Shimano's budget options, Claris and Sora, are 8-speed and 9-speed respectively. My new bike has SRAM Force axis with 12 speeds at the back, but you need to use a special XDR freewheel body, and you have to use SRAM's special 12-speed chains, and then you're stuck using their 12-speed chain rings, and everything stops being so easy to swap between bikes, which is a huge bummer for someone like me who loves swapping things out all the time. Shimano's upcoming Dura Ace will probably also be 12 speeds at the back, but you'll probably need to use Shimano's microspline free hub. With the Sensah Empire PRO, I threw it on a 6 or 7-year-old wheel set with a standard free hub body, and even used an 11-speed chain with 11-speed chain rings, and it just worked. Kudos to these Chinese manufacturers for keeping things simple and not complicating things with proprietary standards and tools. Good job. If you've learned something from this video, or if I've helped you save some money on your next build, why don't you head over onto Patreon and support me on there? The more support I have there from you guys, the less reliant I have to be on YouTube advertising, and can avoid clickbaity content and keep the content like this, honest and to the point. So, should you buy the Sensah Empire PRO? The choice ultimately is yours and will depend on what's important for you in a group set and how tight your budget is. If you really want 12 speed and weight is important to you, I think this is a great option. As always, if you have any questions about this group set, let me know in the comments down below, and don't forget to give this video a thumbs up so I can get some love from the YouTube algorithm. As always, China Cycling out.